What's up, world? This is Taiwan, aka Big Rad, coming back at you again with New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. This is chapter 14. You can buy the book online on Amazon. It's entitled The City, Son of Nico. You spell that Neko. I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've been enjoying the saga so far. I've been enjoying reading it to you. I hope it's intriguing you as much as I was planning on it to. Here we go again with chapter 14. Nino's idea turned out to be a brilliant one. There was no way anyone could have predicted the outcome of the two for one sale. What had started out as a slowly smoldering business had ignited into an all out booming enterprise that promised to be very prosperous for all parties involved, but especially for Nino. The loss of profit, which Roney stated was his most important concern, turned out not to be as bad as he thought it would be. Even with the loss of profit from the two for one sale and the deduction of the almost 1.5 million that he had to pay Ortiz, he would still stand to clear almost $700,000. As for the money that would be lost during the sale, Nino figured that you could not miss what you never had. He nor anyone that he was working with had ever been in possession of anywhere near that amount of money. He thought of the look on their faces as he hit them with the 25,000 apiece that he had been planning to. Even after doing that, he would still have about 400,000 of his own to play with. At the rapidly increasing rate that things were going at, and with more and more money being made every day, he would be a millionaire before the week was out. Now that he was making money hand over fist, they finally had a chance to utilize the money counters that Ortiz had given him. It was coming in so quick that Nino made arrangements for pickups to be made every hour on the hour. He also had to employ more workers from in and around the Carter apartments. He needed the extra bodies for security, packaging, sales, and other things. These employees would receive anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a week, depending on their positions. Although it was a seemingly substantial amount of money to be made on a weekly basis, it was mere chicken feed compared to the salary of the members of CMB. CMB's mode of operation had to adapt and change along with the rapidly thriving business. The first thing Nino did to accommodate that was to assign positions to the members of his crew. Big Tiny was in charge of finance, which meant he was in charge of the money pickups as well as keeping an accurate count of all money at all times. This was a big, if not the biggest responsibility there was, and Big Tiny took it seriously. Ronnie was second in charge of all operations, having to answer to no one except Nino himself. He and Big Tiny were the only ones besides Nino who knew the location of the stash house. Smoke was in charge of the product. His job was to let Nino know what they had, what they were running low on, what was selling quicker than what, and so on. Big Lord was in charge of all product prep. He was the chef for the cooking of crack and the mixer when it was time to cut the heroin. He also sorted and bottled X pills. Main G and DJ were in charge of packaging. They oversaw everything that needed to be bagged, bottled, or packaged in any sort of way. Everything except the X pills had to eventually come through their hands. Chopper was anointed head of security, meaning that any problems that needed to be dealt with, he dealt with them. Nino had no doubt that should any problems arise, he would handle them quickly and severely and with an iron fist. Black was the man in charge of all their extra workers, which included paying them as well as addressing any concerns that they may have. Double D, still having not fully recovered from the shock of his first kill, more or less stuck by Nino or bounced from place to place wherever he was needed. He was also in charge of keeping the walkie-talkies with fresh batteries, a mediocre responsibility, but he was content. The schematics of the distribution process had changed as well. Now the choice of drug that one wanted to purchase determined where you went in the building. The higher you went, the higher you want to get, the further up you had to travel. For instance, the ground floor was for anyone who wanted to buy weed. This was basically an in and out transaction. For X pills, one had to go to the third floor. For crack, it was the fifth floor. For anyone who wanted the highly coveted meth, this was available on lucky floor number 7. Dreaded and desired diesel or heroin was available on the ninth floor, affectionately renamed Cloud 9. In less than a week, CMB had made Ortiz's money, and Nino had already received his second shipment in a different way than Ortiz's money locked inside his Regal in the garage. And miraculously, a day later, everything was reloaded in its entirety. It was like having a Santa Claus strictly for the dope man, and Nino loved it. He was happy that things were turning out the way that they were, but he also knew that there was much more money out there to be made. His plan was to keep the sale going on for about another month or so. Then, after everyone was in the habit of coming there, he would stop the sale and go back to his original prices. Even then, he would still have the biggest and best products at the lowest prices around. It was a win-win situation. Nino was living beyond his wildest dreams, but his thoughts often drifted to his mother, and his heart ached with the memory of her. He vividly remembered her words about never letting anyone know what he was really worth, and also not letting them know how much product he really had. That was why, in addition to taking a couple of keys here, a key there, a pound of this, or a jar of that here and there, he had a house that he had rented. In this house, he kept all the drugs he took from his original stash house and also the majority of his money. For added security, he had separate talks with both Ronnie and Big Tiny, the two most important men in his organization. He smiled as he thought back to both conversations. Hey, Ronnie, you know you're my right hand man, and that's why I made you my first in charge, right? He asked as they passed a bottle of Hennessy back and forth between the two of them. Yeah, I know, and I appreciate that. I want you to know that I won't let you down no matter what, he slurred, taking the bottle back from him and taking a swig. Nino, intoxicated, nodded his head and held a drunken finger in front of him. That's good to know, Ronnie. That's good to know. Hey, I need you to do for me a favor, a real big favor, something that I can't trust anyone else to do. He had Ronnie's attention now. He sat up listening intently. What is it, Nino? You name it and you got it, no matter what it is, he said, leaning closer in rapt attention. I need you to keep a close eye on Big Tiny, he told him. Ronnie's downward arched eyebrows showed his confusion. Tiny? Why you want me to watch Tiny? What? You don't trust him or something? He asked. Nino lazily waved his question off as if swatting a fly away. No, no, no. I trust him. If I didn't, then I wouldn't have put him in charge of all the money. What it is I just don't trust him like I trust you. Ronnie, I can't watch everything. That's why I made you my first officer. I need you to be the eyes in the back of my head. Make sure that he don't get a case of sticky fingers. You feel me? Ronnie looked into Nino's eyes and gave him a serious and meaningful nod. Don't worry, Nino. I got your back. I'll watch him like a hawk, he promised. Nino slapped him on his back and gripped his shoulders firmly. Thanks, Ronnie. I knew I could count on you. Oh, by the way, let's just keep this little talk between us, okay? What talk? Nino nodded at his discretion. That's my boy, he laughed and took another drink of Hennessy. That's my boy. Next night, it was almost the exact same conversation, except theirs occurred as they shared a blunt of dro between the two of them. Big Tiny, you know why I put you in charge of my money, don't you? I guess it's because you trust me. At least I hope it is. That's exactly why. I trust you the most out of everybody. Tiny smiled at that. Well, thanks, Nino. And I want you to know that I would never do anything to betray that trust. I know you wouldn't. I never thought anything different. That's good to know. Nino paused for a moment to let everything soak in before he continued. But just like you wouldn't betray me, there are others who would. Like who? Nino shrugged. I don't know. Like maybe Ronnie, for example. Big Tiny turned to him looking confused. Ronnie? But you made him first in charge after you. Why would you do that if that's what you thought of him? Tiny, I did that for a reason. I did that to be able to keep a close eye on him, but I can't do it by myself. I can't be everywhere at once. I need your help. Okay, my help doing what? You know, keeping an extra eye on him. Make sure that he don't get no credit extra for himself or relieving me of some shit that he thinks I need to be relieved of. You feel what I'm saying? Tiny nodded. Yeah, I feel you. But do you really think that he would do that to you? I know that there's always a possibility, but I also know that two sets of eyes are better than one. So what do you say? Can I count on you, Tiny? He asked with his hand out. Tiny took Nino's hand into his huge fist and shook it firmly. You know you can count on me, Nino. Always. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, and by the way, let's just keep this between us, all right? Keep what between us? Nino reached for the blunt. That's my boy, he said, hitting the weed and holding the smoke in. That's my boy. The talks with both men would keep one watching the other and vice versa. He didn't feel the need to keep any extra eyes on anyone else. He knew what they were getting in, and he knew exactly how many of what they had. He also knew how much was supposed to get made out of what. Everything was weighed before it was packaged, and scales don't lie. He knew that his dearly departed mother would have approved of him, and she was somewhere looking down on him and smiling. Now Nino sat in the parking lot of the Carters, overseeing his vast and increasingly profitable investment and admiring what he saw. The line reached out of the building and wrapped around it with more people adding to it every second. He and Officer Nichols went unseen behind the dark tinted windows of the Aston Martin DB7 that he had just purchased. Officer Nichols had a look of pure admiration on his face. Well, I didn't think you'd be able to pull it off, but you did, he stated. Yup, Mama told me never stop until I bust a nut, he remarked, reciting an old Tupac lyric. Huh? Nothing. So what's going down at headquarters? Anything I should be concerned about? Nah, nothing that you need to be worried about. But there was something that I wanted to talk to you about myself, he confided. What's up? Well, I was looking at this long ass line and I got to thinking to myself that maybe I should be asking for a raise. From the looks of things, it wouldn't hurt you. You got a longer line than McDonald's at lunchtime. Nino looked at Nichols with a mixture of surprise and disgust. Hey, Nichols, listen to me and listen to me good, he began. I'm listening. The only way that you're going to get more money out of me is if you take your bitch ass out there and slang some of that yourself, or if you take that gun off your waist and shoot me and take it. Now you tell me, Officer Nichols, do you see either one of those things happening? He and Nichols locked eyes with each other for what seemed like an eternity, neither one blinking. Nino widened his eyes at him and tilted his head in a further test of ball. Well, do you? He asked again. Nichols finally turned his head and waved his hand at him. Forget I even asked. I already did. I don't know what the fuck I'm paying you for now. You don't do shit. Oh, what the fuck ever. Pretty soon you'll see the advantages of having someone like me on your team. You just watch, he predicted. Nino wasn't impressed. I'm watching, I'm waiting, but I don't see shit. Well, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. Good things come to those who. All of a sudden, he paused in mid sentence and began watching a shabbily dressed white man that had just left the building. Nino followed his eyes and tried to see what was so interesting to him. What the fuck is wrong with you? Shh, quiet. I'm trying to see something, he said, squinting and leaning forward in his seat. Is that? I swear that looks just like. What? Nino snapped, growing impatient. Nichols had apparently seen enough to confirm. He leaned back in his seat with a satisfied smirk on his face. What? Nino queried again. Infiltrated, he informed him. What? You heard me. You've been infiltrated. That man right there is a cop. Nino looked at the scraggly beard in this shabbily dressed man and looked back to Nichols. Bullshit. How do you know that? Nichols spread his arms out wide. Hello? I'm a cop. I worked with him for years. I think I should recognize him. Nino turned and looked at him crossly. But you told me there was nothing going on down that I need to know about. You told me that we weren't on anybody's radar. And as far as I knew, you weren't. He must be working undercover. They don't usually tell us when that happens. Only certain people would know, Nichols explained. Nino had a worried look on his face, then suddenly banged his fist on the steering wheel. After all the shit that's been going on down here, you had to expect something like this to happen. Shit. I wonder how long he's been here. Do you think he knows anything? Nichols shrugged his shoulders. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. If he does, it's no more than they already know. Nino looked back and forth from the rapidly departing man to Nichols and back to him. Well, there's only one way to find out, he said, and put the car in drive. Now it was Nichols who looked worried. What are you doing? Where are we going? I'm about to go and pick up that fucking cop, and you're going to help me. Nichols' eyes bulged out so big they looked like they were about to pop out of their sockets. Bullshit! Stop the car and let me out now. Nino stopped the Aston Martin and pulled his Glock 40 out so quick Nichols almost shitted his pants. Now you listen to me, you greedy, crooked bastard. You I want you to help me to get him in the car. I just want to talk to him. Find out what he knows. That's all. Nichols looked in Nino's eyes and knew that he was serious. He looked from the 40 to Nino, then out the window again before he swallowed hard and turned back to Nino. And you just want to talk to him, he asked? You got my word. Nichols nodded his head weakly. Okay. Nino got his walkie-talkie from the side of his seat and pressed the talk button. This is Papa Bear the bass. This is bass. Go ahead, Papa. Just a little piggy. Base copies, Papa Bear. We're on our way. Nino turned and caught sight of Nichols' worried face. I thought you were just going to have a talk with him. That is all I'm going to do. What are you talking about? Nichols gave him a mistrustful look. Then why do you need 3 other people? I call my people to help even the odds. It's 2 cops against 1 young black man. The fuck you think I am? Stupid? Look, let me talk to him, okay? Please. I'll see what he knows. Nino considered his request for a moment, then nodded his head in consent. Okay, Chief, whatever you say, he remarked, and put the car to drive. Peretti walked down the street away from the Carters with thoughts of his last drug purchase on his mind. This was his second buy in just as many days. The first day he bought crack off the 5th floor, and today he bought a gram of meth from the 7th floor. He planned on going to Cloud 9 tomorrow to purchase a gram or 2 of heroin. Just as he was nearing the corner, he could have sworn that he heard someone calling his name. Sure enough, as he turned the corner, he heard it again. Nick! Hey, Nick, wait up! Nick almost kept going, but stopped. Whoever the damn fool was, he was apparently going to keep calling him until he got a response. When he turned around, he was surprised to see Nichols from his precinct. He looked around before speaking to him, but saw no one except a homeless man against the building they were in front of. What the hell is your problem, Nichols? Nick demanded once he caught up to him. What? You know what the fuck I'm talking about. Why the hell are you calling my name like you crazy or something? I just wanted to make sure that it was you. What are you doing out my way? I'm supposed to be working undercover, but I must not be doing a good job of it if you were able to recognize me so easily. What the hell are you doing? Trying to blow my cover? He asked, still looking around nervously. Nothing about his surroundings was different except for the all-black Aston Martin with the tinted windows parked a few cars down and a blue Chevy that also had tinted windows. Had he not been in the company of a fellow police officer, the sight of the 2 cars would have alarmed him. I'm not trying to blow your cover. When I first saw you, I thought that you were down here grabbing a little something for yourself, to keep the shakes off and help you get by, Nichols said, testing the water. Peretti looked at Nichols as if he was seeing him for the first time. You should know me better than that. I'm about as straight as they come. Nichols nodded his head in agreement, no longer looking friendly. Yeah, that's what I figured. What are you doing down here by yourself? Where's your cruiser? Oh, I'm riding with a friend, he informed him. Friend? He asked, bewildered. What friend? Nick suddenly felt the unmistakable feel of a nozzle poking him in the back of his ribs. He froze instantly and felt a hand patting him down. He looked at Nichols for assistance, but when his eyes met his, he knew none would be forthcoming. Relax, Nick. Nick, they just want to talk to you, that's all, he said, trying to sound as convincing as possible. Nichols, what the fuck, man? You're a fucking cop, for Christ's sake. Yeah, technically he's a cop, but he's a cop that knows which side of the fence has his best interests at heart. We got a great retirement plan going on, one that beats anything your side can offer. Nino told him, relieving him of his piece and sticking it inside his own waist. Talk to him, Nick. Maybe he can work something out for you too. There's a lot of money to be made out here for people out here with our qualifications. Nick looked at him with pure contempt. Qualifications? Nichols, you're not qualified to do anything but be the scum sucking, low life bottom feeder that you turned out to be. You and people like you disgust me, and you give the rest of us good cops a bad name, you maggot eating piece of shit. Nichols looked like he wanted to spit on him. Nino turned Nick around to face him, staring him down as he poked his 40 into his stomach. You make a wrong move, and we're going to see what you had for lunch today. Are we understood? Nick didn't give an answer, and Nino must not have required one because the next thing he knew, he was being pushed towards the waiting car. As they walked towards it, Nino tossed the keys over to Nichols. You drive. Nick and Nino sat in the back seat, and the Aston Martin took off, leaving the street empty again, except for the lonely bum against the wall. Nino, Chopper, Main G, Ronnie, and Big Tiny were all gathered together in an abandoned warehouse surrounding Nick as he sat in the middle of all of them. Officer Nichols stood outside, claiming to be keeping an eye on their surroundings, but Nino knew that was bullshit. He just didn't want to be around as they were interrogating Nick. He must have been feeling a twinge of conscience or something to that effect. Either way, Nino didn't care. The important thing was that they had him here and they wanted answers. Now, look, we already know that you came yesterday and bought crack. Today you came and bought a gram of meth. What the fuck are you up to besides the obvious? Nick sat motionless, his face displaying no emotion. I ain't got nothing to say. What have you been telling the people that you work for? What do they know about us? Nick's expression did not change. I ain't got nothing to say. Nino stood directly in front of him and stooped down so that they could be at eye level with each other. Hey, why don't you cut the shit? No harm, no foul. We could scratch each other's back. You let me know what's going on with the police, and I'll make you a very rich man. Working for me, Nichols makes more than 3 times what he makes being a cop. I'll give you even more than that. What do you say? Nick looked around at the faces of everyone surrounding him before he settled his eyes on Nino again. He leaned in slowly towards him, and Nino almost held his breath waiting to hear his answer. You want to know what I say? I say go fuck yourself. And when we do run up in there and raid that place that you made into an advanced drugstore, I'm going to personally run a billy club so far up your ass, you're going to wish that you had taken my advice and did it yourself. And you want to know the worst thing? I'm going to make sure not to use any lubrication. Judging by that pretty mouth of yours and that twinkle in your eyes, I'm willing to bet that you'll like it, he ended with a smile. Nino's eyes were anything but twinkling. They were smoldering like red hot embers. He took a deep breath and stood up. That was definitely the wrong answer, he said, before turning and walking away. So what do you want to do with him? Chopper asked in his deep baritone voice. Well, he was moving up the ladder, right? Fuck it. Let him keep moving on up. Let's give him a taste of what he was going to purchase tomorrow. And let's not be stingy either. We don't want our guests to think that we were anything but hospitable. Let's make sure that he gets more than he'll ever need, Nino hinted. Chopper knew exactly what he was insinuating. I read you loud and clear. Approximately 10 minutes later, all the members of CMB exited the warehouse. Everyone stood around wordlessly as Nino and Main G produced blunts and lit them before starting to pass them around. Nichols watched them ceremoniously puff, and pass while he waited impatiently to receive word about what went down. When it became obvious that no one was going to speak up, he finally did himself. Well, no one acknowledged him and they went about smoking like he hadn't said a word. Well, what? Well, what happened? What you think happened? We talked. And he said more impatient than ever now. And now we're done talking, Nino answered vaguely. Nichols exhaled loudly and gritted his teeth. He was beginning to grow tired of Nino's insolence. He wished that he didn't have any dirt on him. He would have loved to be able to slap the cuffs on him and beat the shit out of him all the way to the precinct. You know what the fuck I mean. I want to know what the hell you did to him. Nino gave a bored sigh and reached for one of the blunts. Why don't you go see for yourself, he suggested. Nichols glared at him and marched off into the warehouse. Moments later, he came running back out. You son of a bitch! You killed him! You killed him! He ranted. Nino's composure did not change. Oh, come on, Nichols. You knew we were going to kill him, he said calmly. I didn't know shit. You didn't? Okay, then tell me something. What were we supposed to do with him after you helped to lure him in the car? Let him go? How long do you think it would have been before they had arrest warrants typed up with both of your names on them? How long before you were sitting in the jail cell right next to me? Nichols didn't have an answer for any of those questions. After proving his point, Nino smiled. Yeah, that's what I thought. His smugness touched a nerve with Nichols. Fuck you, he snapped. Yeah, and fuck you too. You think you so high and mighty? You ain't no better than us. In fact, you worse. You took an oath to uphold the law and to protect and serve. We took an oath to get paid and to take out anybody that stood in our way. Now you tell me, who kept their word and who's a fucking liar? That was all Nichols could take. He reached for his 40 Glock and pulled it out in Nino's face. Everyone except Nino simultaneously pulled their individual pieces and pointed it at him. They stood staring each other down with pistols pointed in a very one-sided standoff. Nino, unworried, took another hit from his blunt. Well, it's your move. What you gonna do? Nichols looked around him, weighing his options, and had to admit that it wasn't looking good for the home team. He slowly took his piece out of Nino's face and holstered it. I fucking hate you. Nino was not amused. I don't doubt that, but I bet if you were really honest with yourself, you would admit that you hate yourself even more. Now here, he said, peeling bills off from a handful of money and throwing it at him. Here's your bonus. You earned it. Take it and get the fuck out of my face. And just in case you're thinking about backing out, you may want to think again. Just like you don't give a fuck about me, I don't give a fuck about you. If I go down, I promise I'm taking you with me, Nino told him. Nichols silently bent down and picked up the money at his feet and put it in his pocket before he took off walking away from them. You sure you don't want to ride, officer? Nino yelled after him. Fuck you, he yelled back. Big Tiny stepped up and stood at Nino's side. Yo, Nino, I ain't trying to question you or nothing, but are you sure that was a smart thing to do? I mean, he's still the police, you know? Nino continued to watch Nichols' retreating figure. Fuck the police. It was a little after 3 a.m. when Scotty got the call. When he heard the phone ring that early in the morning, he knew there was no way it would be anything but bad news. In the end, he was right, and now here he was pulling his cruiser onto a street that was lit up by the lights of multiple emergency vehicles. Scotty walked up to the end of the perimeter and was met by Detective Carson in homicide. Carson was a 32-year veteran on the force and just about the best there was in his field. He was a 54-year-old mulatto that was able to successfully blend in well enough on either side of the fence, but that was more of a curse than a blessing. The whites thought him to be a nice enough fellow who was too black at times, while the blacks thought him to be an all right guy who wasn't black enough at times. In the end, not fully accepted by either side had left him confused. Even at his mature age, he still indecisively straddled the fence. It was perhaps those reasons that made him such an authority in his profession. He more or less submerged himself in his work, and it just so happened that he was excellent at it. Captain, he greeted. Ben, he responded back. Where is he? Over there sitting on the bus stop bench. Nobody's really sure how long he's been out here. A patrol car discovered him while they were driving by. They stopped because they noticed it was well past the time for the buses to be running. And when they came over to say something to him, well, you know the rest. What's the cause of death? Too early to tell. Bullshit, Ben. You've been doing this forever. I respect your professional opinion. If you were a betting man, what would you say the cause of death was? Ben was reluctant to answer. Honestly, honestly, Ben looked around before answering as if he was afraid that someone might overhear. Even though when no one was around, he still leaned in and whispered his suspicions. Drug body was thrown for a loop. Drug overdose, Ben will know for sure come back. I need to see him, Scotty stated. Ben was a bit hesitant talking us. Scotty followed, but his steps slowed considerably when he got close. He sat on the bench, slumped forward, looking like someone who was extremely intoxicated, and stood over with his mouth slightly open, and his eyes were wide open and glazed over the familiar gaze of the dead. Scotty bent down in front of his longtime friend. Damn, Nick, what the hell did I let you talk me into? If I would have ever that you I brought Nino Brown down before and I could do it again. But this that's the end of chapter 14. City 2, Son of Nino. You can buy the book online. It's entitled The City, Son of Nico. You spell that Neko. I thank you for tuning in every day. I really appreciate your viewership. I'll be back tomorrow with the next chapter of New Jack City 2, Son of Nino. Thanks once again for tuning in.